This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
In the TV comedy Parks and Recreation, actor Nick Offerman, he played a character named Ron Swanson, and even though Ron works for the government, he doesn't trust the government, like the time he was teaching the concept of taxes to a young student.
This is your lunch. Now, you should be able to do whatever you want to with this, right? If you want to eat all of it, great. If you want to throw it away in the garbage, that's your prerogative. But here I come, the government, and I get to take 40% of your lunch. And that, Lauren, is how taxes work.
That's not fair.
You're learning. Uh-oh, capital gains tax.
That's a great way to demonstrate that to kids, much less anybody. Hey, here's your platter. Let me just start taking some off as Uncle Sam, right?
I love that. I love that. I haven't seen that, but I love that. I got to find that clip somewhere. What a wonderful lesson. You know, we don't get to control what, Big Brother is at work and sometimes just steal right off of our plate. And, it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. It really does boil down to groceries. I mean, think of the last couple years, how government spending created a situation where we had inflation, and now it's created higher interest rates to try to curb the inflation, all these government-induced problems. But at the end of the day, look at your grocery bill. By doubling grocery cost, haven't they effectively taken food off your plate, off the table, as it were?
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and then you throw in the tax factor in there, forget it.
Yeah, so these are government actions that we can't entirely control. And so tax-sensitive retirement planning, I think, is critical because at the end of the day, it really does boil down to groceries. And candidly, we don't know what we don't know is what people often say to me when they come to these classes we teach. Just didn't know I didn't know. And we can show them ways to legally avoid taxes. It really boils down to legal tax avoidance versus tax evasion. And, maybe I can talk about that just for a second. There is a famous judge. He was on the appellate court back in New York. His name was Learned Hand, which is an interesting name. But, every first-year law student in tax law learns about Judge Learned Hand. They all recognize his name. I teach classes to continuing legal education classes to attorneys. They all are nodding when I talk about this guy. But Judge Learned Hand taught that we don't have a patriotic duty to pay more than our own fair share in taxes, and he said that everyone engages in some form of legal tax avoidance, meaning ways to minimize their taxes. They try to strategize. He said there are two sets of tax rules, one for the informed and one for the uninformed, and the informed will act within those rules to try to legally avoid taxes. And there's a wonderful story that was told. It's maybe entirely apocryphal. I don't know if it's real or not, but the story is told that he brought a clerk over to the window of his office, and he looked out, and there was this river there, and he was trying to illustrate the principle between tax avoidance and tax evasion. And he pointed out a particular bridge that wasn't far from their office, and he said, if we go over such and such a bridge, we can pay the toll tax and get home quite quickly. But, if you look another mile down the river there's such and such other bridge that doesn't have a toll tax, and we can take that bridge and still get home. The point being, if we're willing to inconvenience ourselves, we can still get to our desired destination, but we don't necessarily have to pay the toll tax. And the point of running through the toll gate is not something that most honest people would consider, and unfortunately this was lost on Wesley Snipes. He ended up going to jail for what we call tax evasion. Tax evasion is running through the toll gate and trying to avoid the toll. Hunter Biden's in the news for this, just trying to get around things. But we can legally avoid taxes to the degree we're willing to inconvenience ourselves and implement strategies that can still get us home. It can still get us to the destination we want to get to, but without paying unnecessary taxes. And so, kind of wrap that thought up. I have a mentor who was an interesting fellow. He once was citing this, or he heard this citation of Judge Learned Hand in front of me. He says, that's not quite true. There's actually three sets of tax rules. There's one set for the informed, one for the uninformed, and one for those who were informed and don't do anything with the information.
Oh, nice.
So I like to wrap my public education classes up with that quote sometimes because These principles can be taught. The question is, are we going to act on them? There are things we can absolutely legally do to avoid the train wreck of higher taxes that are coming. The question is, are we willing to start planning early enough? We don't know what we don't know. So will we meet with people like myself who understand these principles, who work with a team of people, who work with your accountant, who work with your attorney, who all cover each other's blind spots to help get the best results for you as a team approach? That takes some initiative on the part of each of us. So the question is, are you going to do anything with this information, knowing that there's ways to legally avoid taxes? Are you going to meet with people like myself who can help you out? And so we would invite you to come in. It's a complimentary session. Let's just take a look at where you're at, where you're headed, and see if there are some ways where you could potentially significantly reduce your future taxes, thereby not only leave an estate, but, more importantly, prolong the life of your money so you don't run out prematurely and become dependent on other people.
You've talked about the classes that you do here on the show, Mark. You've talked about how important education is. I know how important it is to you. You are a book reader. You are a studier. You are a researcher. You know the topic of finances inside and out. You've been doing it for 3 decades. Now, that can be intimidating to some of our listeners, right? Especially when it comes to such a personal conversation about their money and the future and all those kind of things. What is that first time meeting with you like? Paint that picture for me, because I think a lot of people go, all right, so I've listened to him. Now he wants me to come in. He probably wants me to hand him this shoebox of statements and receipts, and then he'll call me in 2 weeks and tell me what I need to do. Is that the case?
Well, I definitely don't want your shoebox of receipts. I've had people do that to me. Expect me to wade through stuff. And no, we don't do that. But we call it the good fit meeting. That initial meeting is really just to kind of feel things out. We want to give people a chance to meet us. We want to meet them. We want to hear what's important to them. I want to really, really listen beyond the words to what they're really trying to say is important to them. And if there's anxiety in there because this is a foreign language to them, well, I've got to be sensitive to that. And, I'm human. I may slip into some lingo occasionally and need them to kick me in the shins, and I'm totally fine with that, because at the end of the day, it's about helping them get clarity. And if we can help them in any way, we want to do that. And so we actually give them a tick list of some items to bring in. I don't have to know to the penny where all your money's at, but we want to have a general idea of what you've been doing, what you've accumulated, what you want to do in the future with that money, what your dreams are, because I'm a lot like a travel planner. We want to figure out, what's your dream destination? Then we're going to figure out the best route to get there, using a map of sorts, creating a map for you. And the very last thing we want to do is find the vehicles, the financial vehicles or instruments that will carry you to these destinations. If it's across water, we're going to need a boat. If it's through the air, we're going to need a plane. And there are financial vehicles that are like that, which we can help people better understand. And so we put all this information up very easily in a visual format on the whiteboard that, frankly, many people take a picture of because they're seeing for the first time kind of where they're at, and then we show them how to translate those assets into income. And so, as we always say, none of us know what we don't know. And so don't be intimidated by the fact that I've been doing this for 30 years and I've met with hundreds of people, because in truth, that's a real advantage to you. You don't know what other people have gone through. I've heard those things because I've been meeting with people for decades. And so we have a perspective that's unique, and we're very happy to share that. We want people to live the life that they dream of. I mean, really, I'm very sincere in saying that, because this retirement money is sacred, I think, and I don't use that term at all lightly. We consider it sacred money. Once people retire, particularly for health reasons, they can't often go back to work, and so we've got to make sure this money lasts for them. And so there's incredible sensitivity there, because that money represents their life earnings. It's their life energy translated into these, nominal values on their accounts, and we've got to make sure that perpetuates into the future so that they can live the life that they want to live. And so we just say, don't be intimidated. Let's just talk. I'm a little short, fat guy.
Oh my gosh!
Chase you. I'm not going to chase you or pressure you or anything like that. We just want to visit and share some ideas, because we know, without question, we know it's the rare exception that we can't help. Most people leave that first experience much more upbeat, with much more confidence about, okay, here's where I'm good, here's where I'm maybe a bit weak, and most importantly, here's some things I can do to improve. And there's ways to improve, so we can help them with.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.